Welcome to the City Current Radio Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you in stories of organizations, individuals powering the good, making a difference, and also to helping you with simplicity, which is a nice little teaser for our good friend. We get to kick it off with Matt Lyles. He is the president and CEO and the host of Simple Brand with Matt Lyles Podcast. So we've known him for a long time, a good friend who we got to know in Memphis and now living in Nashville. He was with FedEx. We'll talk about a little of that storyline, helping FedEx. And now, obviously, he's launched and he's becoming his own celebrity in terms of author and podcast and so many things that he's taking on as this new adventure. So, Matt, how are you doing?
Jeremy, I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me here.
So give us a little bit of your backstory. As I alluded to, we got to know you really well, good friend in Memphis. And so share a little bit of that story. And then obviously now living in Nashville.
I'd love to. So I got to spend 17 and a half years having a career at FedEx, one of the top largest companies in the world. And I was able to have dream jobs throughout my career there. The last half of my career, I was in marketing and branding and got to touch and got to lead a lot of the major branding initiatives across the globe. My last swan song work there was redesigning the FedEx experience, rooting it in simplicity, and then teaching that to 500,000 employees across the world. And I loved that concept so much of simplicity, and I gained a real big passion for it. I like to refer to myself as leading a crusade of simplicity across FedEx. And I realized that I wanted to do this on my own, and I wanted to bring that crusade to others. So I had the opportunity to leave FedEx on good terms, and now I'm bringing that crusade of simplicity to all kinds of business owners and business leaders across the U.S.
I think simplicity is something that hopefully we all kind of can define, but I think it's funny because I forget what the quote is, but it's basically along the lines of, I didn't have enough time to write a more simple narrative. So, I'm sorry, like it was too long. I didn't have enough time to simplify it, right? But my point is that simplifying things takes time and strategy and focus. And in many times, unbeknownst to ourselves, we way overcomplicate things. So how do you look at this world of simplicity?
To your point, business leaders don't take the time to make sure that things are simple. And a lot of times it's because they don't have the right goal. The goal is, this quarter's earnings, or the goal is to launch this product out. And when we focus on the wrong goals, that's when complexity creeps in. And that's how things get more and more complex. And we don't realize that in today's environment, when you think about the world is revolving. Nope, it's not revolving. It's evolving. The world is evolving at a rapid pace, and customer expectations have never been higher. So you've got more and more complex experiences, more and more experiences and messages competing for customers' attention. And if we don't focus on making sure that it's simple for customers, then they're going to leave us. They're going to leave us and go to somebody else.
You are putting out a ton of great content. You, on the author side, you have a newsletter that you send out, and you always have kind of a really helpful anecdote or story that you share. And I'm thinking there was one of, I believe it was Chick-fil-A, where they realized really fast that moms were pulling in with busy kids and trying to manage. And someone noticed that, wait a second, I can make this really easy for them and kind of create a concierge type service. And so talk about where you're drawing inspiration and sharing these tidbits and bits of advice based on simplicity.
Love to. Yeah, Chick-fil-A, Mom's Valet, that's the service. And this came about from one of Chick-fil-A's owner-operators in Florida. And he recalled his time as a parent, trying to wrangle a couple of toddlers in a restaurant. And, I've been there too. I don't know if you have, but it's not easy to order food, pay for food, and carry food to a table when you're trying to wrangle one or even two toddlers. This owner-operator recognized that, And he saw what parents were going through in the restaurant and understood their struggles, understood like what it was like to have that challenge, and realized, well, how can I take a little bit of that stress away from them? How can I make that simpler? And he brought Mom's Valet. And that's what I look for. I look for companies that have stories like that. Stories where, no customer focus group said, hey, we should have Mom's Valet. It came about from this owner operator observing customers and empathizing with them. Empathy is one of the key behaviors that goes into creating a simple experience. So I look for examples of large companies, like Amazon or Apple or Chick-fil-A, that are creating simple experiences like that. But what I really love is finding those smaller companies that show that, you know what, you can create an Amazon experience without having to have an Amazon budget. And here's how small businesses can do it too.
Like anything, there always has to be a process. To be able to even simplify something or to build something from scratch, there has to be a process. What are some of your favorite bits of advice in terms of building a process to both find areas to simplify, but also to start from scratch and build something with simplicity?
Ooh. First things first, when you're creating a process, you have to make sure that you're creating the process not for your own benefit, but for the user's benefit. Whether that's your end customer or whether that's your team members who are going to be using that process. It may cause you a little bit of work to make that happen, but creating the process has to be for the benefit of others. And with that, I've created not so much a process, but I've created what I've defined as key behaviors. These are the behaviors that you and your team members can instill to make sure that you create a simple experience. And to make it kind of simple, I've outlined them in the acronym SIMPLE. So simple never stops is the first one. That means you're always changing. You're always looking to improve. Innovate to stay ahead. You've got to be constantly looking into the future and understanding where your customers are heading, where the industry is heading, and what's going to affect them, and how can you make changes to get ahead of that. Minimize barriers. All your customers have barriers to getting the full experience that you offer. So what are those barriers, and what can you do as a business leader to minimize those barriers? Prune it back. When it comes to an experience, less is more. Customers don't want to go through 6 steps. So if you've got 6 steps in your customer journey, how can you prune that back to 3 or 2 or even 1? And then lose the jargon. A lot of times people like to sound smart and think that we have more credibility if we use, smart words. But honestly, all that does is confuse customers. And when you confuse, you lose. So simplify your language and lose the jargon. And then what we talked about earlier, empathy. Empathize with your customers. Listen to them, but also observe them. And what are those external challenges they have? What are the internal struggles they have? And how can you help solve their problems? How can you make their life easier? That's the process or the filter that I've created that helps people in understanding how to create a simple experience.
Yeah, I love that. Besides Chick-fil-A, give me another one that stands out, just top of mind, as a story that exemplifies exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mentioned minimize barriers earlier, and this is not that well known of a company, but I'm Compass Real Estate. They've got an office. They have offices here in Nashville. And I don't know when the last time you've tried to sell your house. We sold our house in Memphis about a year ago, I guess. But that can be a difficult process. And real estate agents know that one of the best ways for you to get the most value out of your home is to make sure that it is renovated and there's all the details that make it look so great that someone would walk in and they know that they have to have that house. That's a financial barrier for a number of homeowners. Compass Real Estate saw that barrier and they minimized it. They've created a concierge service where they will work with a homeowner and they will front them the money to renovate the home, to stage the home, to put in lots and lots of luxury details that will help that home sell at a much higher price than they originally planned. And then the homeowner doesn't have to pay Compass back until after the home sells. So they've recognized that barrier and they minimized it.
Yeah, that's a great example of innovation, especially in that space,
Yeah.
both minimizing it and also to like innovation. To me, that's a really great example. When you look at your podcast, talk about your podcast, your guests. I mean, you on your end are talking about all of these subjects and topics and things on your podcast. So give us a little bit of a deep dive for your podcast.
Wow. I am so grateful for the guests that I get to talk to now. It is kind of like a dream come true. Like I get to meet a lot of my heroes, book authors and business leaders that have done some really cool work or have written about subjects around business. And most of it is related to simple experiences. I've had authors like, David Burkus, and he talks about how to motivate your teams by focusing on a large fight, picking a fight that your teams can all rally around. Some upcoming guests include Deanne Turner. She is the former head of culture and talent with Chick-fil-A. I have followed her for years, and now I get to speak to her about how she built Chick-fil-A's culture and helped ensure simplicity made it into that culture. And then one of my biggest heroes as it relates to simplicity is the agency Siegel Gale. Every 2 years, they actually release, based on a lot of research, the Global Simplicity Index, the top brands in all of the world that provide the simplest experiences. And I get to talk to their CMO, Margaret Malloy, all about everything they've learned and everything they preach and teach about simplicity.
When you look at the balance of simplicity, but also to being able to say everything that needs to be said, I feel like there is a balance between legally making sure you have everything that needs to be said in there and not having confusion. And at the same time, though, like you said, being simple and to the point where you're not taking him on a journey that doesn't need to be taken, and you're keeping it very focused. And so there's this balance point. How do you kind of navigate, either for yourself or, when you're kind of consulting with others, how do you encourage that balance and where to go? And I'm even thinking from our own writing, like what's your advice on that?
Well, you used a key word there that I like to focus on, and that's journey. So the customer goes through a journey, and there's lots of steps and milestones along the way for that journey. And you have to figure out, as a business leader, what does the customer want to know? What do they need to know at that specific point in the journey? And too many times, leaders and companies will say, well, they need to know everything right here at step one. And that's not the case. Yes, they may need to know everything, but not all at once. So it's being really intentional and really understanding what is the right content, the right information, the right message they need to know at each specific point. And then just kind of feeding it to them at those points. And sometimes the customer may want to know more. So give them an outlet to know more. So at one point in the experience, give them everything that they need to know just at that point. If they want to know more, give them an option to go a little bit deeper.
When you look at everything we're dealing with COVID-19, the pandemic, obviously so much is rapidly changing and evolving. And I feel like every day it's what you knew yesterday is almost irrelevant today. What are the things that have your attention? When you look at the world that you're in and the things that you're focused on, what are some of the trends or the topics or the things that you're focused on?
It is really interesting seeing how some businesses are surviving and some businesses are even thriving during this pandemic environment. And what I'm trying to help small business owners, especially right now, small and medium-sized business owners understand is that customers need as little friction in their experience as possible. And they need as little contact in their experience as possible. And a lot of small business owners are set up as a brick and mortar store where customers come in to go through their experience, and they come in for their transaction. You need to invest in technology. And the good news is that in 2020, a lot of the technology that will help small business owners to provide that frictionless, no contact experience is really affordable. If you're a restaurant owner and you don't have online ordering capability on your site right now, you have to do that tomorrow. Like, that is job number one, is making sure your customers can have a frictionless, no contact experience. And that's what's going to help a lot of businesses weather this storm.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the idea now of thinking digital first, almost with every sort of touch point, and to your point, kind of reinventing how you look at things and the customer journey, the touch points, how you engage. I mean, all of that I feel like is changing. And so for us, understanding that, embracing that, and looking at that as an opportunity to grow will only make us stronger coming out of this. What's something that you've learned as a process going through COVID-19, everything we're dealing with? What's something that you've learned personally that you think is going to help you come out stronger on the other side of this?
Wow. Yeah. And this, I wish that I had learned this, or I wish that I had implemented this much earlier in my business. And it's a mantra that I created in my career 7 years ago, but I've really started focusing on it much more every day. And that is always be helping. So I'm reaching out to all my potential clients, my existing clients, without having the expectation for any financial transaction. I'm reaching out to serve and to help first. And sometimes that actually may hurt me financially. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm kind of struggling right now financially. But when I reach out to people, I know and I recognize they're struggling too. And I know that there are ways for me to help them. And so that's what I focus on first. Always be helping. And what I'm finding is that not every single time, because there are still some customers that are still, struggling financially so much that they're not really able to do any business right now. But there are customers who are, and they're recognizing, what I'm offering up to help them. And they're saying, you know what, if he's offering this, just helping us, if he's offering this for free, imagine what he can do when we pay him. And I'm not saying that you have to go work for free for everybody, but it's, it's putting people ahead of yourself and figuring out what are some ways that you can help others today.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where you and I have a very similar outlook on just how you build relationships and create opportunities. And to your point, the more you help others, it does come back full circle and it does help you. It may not be an immediate return, but in the end, the tidal wave always comes in your favor when you help people and put them first. So wrap up and talk about where we can get in touch with you. Obviously, where can we listen to your podcast? Where can we subscribe to your newsletter? Where do we go?
Awesome. Well, you can listen to my podcast. I'm on all the directories now. You can listen to Simple Brand with Matt Lyles on pretty much any directory that you want, Apple, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio. wherever you want to find it, I'm there. But if you want to receive information from me, if you want to get lessons from me each week, one of the best things you can do, and I'm going to help you right now by offering you a gift. You can go to mattlyles.com/simple playbook. And from there, you can download my 6 behaviors that create a simple experience. And with that, you'll then get access to all of my lessons that I send out each week.
Well, absolutely love it. Matt, love what you're doing. Thank you very much for being our friend, for powering the good, and obviously for coming on the show. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You know, I'm a huge fan, and even though it's virtual, I'm so glad I get to see you today.